In 1991, a 16-year-old girl from Los Angeles stood on the cover of Vogue. She wasn't just a model. She was called the future of fashion. But just 2 years later, by 1993, that same girl was a mother, and the industry that made her was already pushing her out. Her name was Beverly Peele. And this isn't a story about glamour. It's a story about the spotlight and how fast it can burn you. She had it all. Runways in Paris, flashing cameras in New York, magazine covers, TV shows. But then came the hospital lights, the lawsuits, the silence. What really happened to the supermodel who had it all, then vanished before adulthood? If you've ever wondered what happens when the fashion world stops protecting its own, her story is the answer. In the next few minutes, you'll see a timeline of pain, a rise that turned into a freefall, and a secret the fashion world never wanted told. By the end, you'll understand why Beverly Peele left the front row and why her voice matters more than ever. In 1987, she was just a 12-year-old girl, living in Los Angeles, playing, dreaming, laughing like any other kid. But then something changed. A camera, a photo shoot, and a door that opened fast. By 14, she was on the cover of Elle. By 16, she was on Vogue. By 17, she became the youngest model ever to sign an exclusive deal with Ralph Lauren. Her name was Beverly Peele, and she was moving faster than anyone could imagine. She walked for Chanel. She posed for Versace. She was shot by legends like Richard Avedon. From runways to magazine covers, her resume grew faster than her age. But behind those flashing lights was a child pretending to be an adult in a world that was worth billions. She smiled on stage, but her heart was still teenage. She wore high fashion, but still listened to love songs alone. No one asked if she was okay. They just asked if she could walk in heels. In this world, fame doesn't protect innocence. It kills it faster. And for Beverly Peele, the next twist would come fast. Not from the runway, but from real life. She became a mother before she even turned 18. So what happens when a teenage star suddenly becomes a teenage mother? The lights don't stop, but the world starts turning darker. In 1993, Beverly Peele was just 18 years old, but she was already a mother. She gave birth to her daughter, Cairo. And with that one beautiful moment, her career disappeared. The phones that once rang non-stop went silent. The bookings that once came daily were suddenly gone. No goodbye, no thank you, just silence. In most worlds, motherhood is respected, even celebrated. But in fashion, it was treated like a crime. The same magazines that called her the face of the future now pretended she never existed. Photographers stopped calling, brands moved on, and Beverly, who once stood at the top, was pushed out like she had done something wrong. But what had she done? She didn't break any law. She didn't cause any scandal. She just became a mom. The same industry that praised her for being young and beautiful now punished her for being grown and real. And that's the truth no one wanted to say out loud. Fashion loves the girl, but it fears the woman. Beverly's light didn't fade. It was shut off. The world saw her glow for years. But after Cairo, they only saw her as used. So, did the industry ever let her climb back? Or was the ladder removed forever? In the late 1990s, Beverly Peele was still trying. She was still working, still modeling, still showing up to sets with her head high. But something had changed. The covers, gone. The big brands, silent. She now posed for catalogs, small shoots, jobs to pay the bills. She was no longer the girl who walked for Versace. She was the woman trying to hold a career and a family at the same time. The fall wasn't sudden. It was a slow drop, like slipping off a stage with no one to catch you. The world didn't watch her fade. It just looked away. But don't think she lost her talent, or her beauty, or her drive. Those things stayed. What left was the welcome. Fashion had moved on to the next girl, the next look, the next fantasy. And Beverly, once their favorite dream, was now a reminder of the one thing they never wanted to see: reality. She became a ghost in an industry that only honors the living image. She smiled in shoots, but inside she was breaking. This wasn't just about fame. This was about being forgotten while still standing in the room. From high heels to heavy silence. From flashbulbs to fading lights. But Beverly's hardest trial wasn't being left behind. It was the storm that came after. Not in magazines, not on catwalks, but in real life. So what happened when the cameras were gone and survival was all she had left? In 2010, the world that once worshipped Beverly Peele almost forgot her forever. It was supposed to be just a normal day. Just Beverly and her daughter Cairo driving home. Then in a flash of metal and screams, everything changed. A car crash, one so violent. The doctors weren't sure she would walk again. Hospital beds replaced runways. Screams replaced cheers. Painkillers replaced makeup kits. Cairo was hurt too. And for a mother, that pain cuts deeper than any bone. The fashion world, silent. No flowers, no help, no safety net. Just lawsuits, medical bills, and months of slow recovery. From the glamour of Vogue to the cold metal of a wheelchair, she had built a life in beauty, but beauty had never built her a safety net. There were no cameras now, only debt collectors, no stylists, only nurses, no fame, only fear. And when the headlines came, they didn't ask, "How is she?" They asked, "Is she done?" But Beverly wasn't done. She was just broken, and she had to heal in silence, while the world kept moving without her. They say pain shapes people, but this pain, it shattered her. And yet she still held her daughter close, still fought to stand again, not as a model, but as a mother who refused to let tragedy be the last word. But how far could fortune fall before it takes everything with it? In 2014, Beverly Peele did something no one expected. She stood in front of the world and said the words no model is ever supposed to say. "I'm broke. No mansions, no secret savings, no rescue from the world that once called her a goddess." She had walked the finest runways, worn the richest brands, smiled in front of 1,000,000 cameras. But now, she was hiding from rent bills. She wasn't ashamed. She was just tired of hiding. Fame had left, money had vanished, but honesty, that was the one thing she still owned. She told her truth, and that truth burned through the fashion world like a spark on silk. People whispered, how could she be broke? She was on Vogue. She worked with Versace, but no one asked. Why did no one help her? The same industry that bathed her in lights had left her in the dark. She had given them her youth, her face, her body. And when she became a mother, when she became human, they turned away. But her words didn't fade. They echoed across interviews, across Instagram, across every girl dreaming of that cover shoot. And for once, the story wasn't about glamour. It was about what happens when the spotlight dies and what happens to the people it leaves behind. She didn't ask for pity. She demanded truth. And behind that truth, a storm was gathering, one that would bring her name back into the headlines for a reason no one saw coming. In 2020, a storm ripped through Hollywood. Women stood up. Whispers became roars. Secrets turned into headlines. But fashion had stayed quiet until Beverly Peele decided she wouldn't be silent anymore. Not now, not after everything. She watched brave voices speak out, and she realized her silence wasn't protection anymore. It was a prison. For years, she had held back the truth, not because she wanted to, but because the world had taught her that speaking meant punishment. Jobs would vanish, doors would shut, and no one would believe her. But now the world was listening, and she had something to say, something she had buried, something that hurt to even remember. It wasn't just about missed jobs or lost fame. It was about a wound that had never healed. She looked at her past and saw power where she once saw only pain. The runway lights, the designer gowns, the flashing cameras, they had hidden what really happened. And now, she was done hiding. This wasn't revenge. This was release. A way to say, I'm still here. I matter. And what happened to me was real. But stepping forward wasn't easy. It meant risking the last pieces of safety she had. But staying silent, that would cost her everything. So she made a choice to stand in truth, even if her knees shook. The world was watching, and her next words would shock the very industry that once called her a star. In 2021, Beverly Peele walked into a courtroom not as a model, but as a mother, a survivor, and a witness. She filed a lawsuit against fashion tycoon Peter Nygård. Not for money, not for fame, but for a truth that had stayed buried for years. She claimed that in the early 2000s, on an island in the Bahamas, she was assaulted by him, and what she said next shook even the strongest hearts. Her son, Trey, was conceived from that very night. That's what she alleged. A life born from trauma. Nygaard, he denied it, said it never happened. But the world, it couldn't look away anymore, because Beverly wasn't the only one. Other women had spoken. Other cases were forming. The net was closing in. Still, the fashion industry stayed quiet. No statements, no support, no outrage. A woman who once stood on the world's biggest runways was now fighting alone. And yet, she stood, not just for herself, but for every girl who was ever told to stay silent. This was more than a court case. It was history trying to correct itself. Motherhood, trauma, and justice, all in one heartbreaking story. She didn't wear a gown this time. She wore her truth, and the room could feel it. One woman against a billion-dollar name. No fashion show, no spotlight, just a fight for what was right. The truth is, Beverly Peele's story was never about one fall. It was about a system that lifted her up just to let her crash. She started modeling at 12. She was on the cover of Vogue by 16, a household name before she was old enough to vote. But by 18, after becoming a mother, she was already being erased. No more bookings, no more cameras, no more covers. And by 39, she was broke. By 46, she was finally ready to speak out loud. But the world had already looked away. Her story wasn't destroyed by one man. It was crushed by a machine that only cared about the perfect picture, not the person behind it. They took her youth, her image, her voice. But when the glamour faded, they left her in the shadows. The contracts didn't come back. The silence grew louder. The system she served had no place for her truth. And that's the hidden truth fashion doesn't want to face. It's not just Beverly. It's every girl who's told to stay pretty, stay quiet, and stay useful until she's not. The real tragedy is not that Beverly Peele fell. It's that the world watched her fall and didn't catch her. They clapped when she rose, but they vanished when she cried. And that's what makes this story so haunting. It's not just about pain. It's about the choice to ignore it. And that is what takes us to the final truth. She didn't disappear. She was pushed out. One of the world's first black supermodels, erased before she even hit her prime. But Beverly Peele's story isn't just about her. It's a mirror held up to an industry that feeds on youth, feeds on beauty, and spits out human beings the moment they break. From Vogue, covers to hospital bills. From runways to courtrooms. From being called the next Naomi to being treated like a name no one wants to mention. She didn't vanish because she lost her spark. She vanished because the industry never protected her in the first place. Her silence wasn't consent. It was survival. Her fall wasn't weakness. It was the cost of being real in a world that only wanted fantasy. And now, that world must hear her. Because Beverly Peele isn't just a model. She's a mother. She's a fighter. She's a voice for every girl who was told to smile while hurting inside. She stood in front of the camera at 16. Now, at 50, she stands in front of the world, telling the story fashion tried to bury. This is the untold tragedy. Not that she fell, but that no one helped her up. The world cheered her rise, then turned its back when she needed it most. But now, the silence is broken, and the face once forgotten is finally remembered. For her truth, for her strength, for her courage. So ask yourself, how many Beverly Peeles did we lose while chasing beauty and ignoring the cost? Beverly Peele's story isn't just a tragedy, it's a testimony. A voice that refused to stay silent. A face that the world tried to forget, but couldn't erase. You've seen the rise, a teenage girl on Vogue. You've seen the fall, bookings gone, money gone, safety gone. You've seen the crash, the poverty, the fight to keep living. And you've seen the bravery, to speak against the powerful, to name names, to stand alone. But Beverly's story isn't just about the past. It's about what still lurks behind the bright lights. Because this industry knows how to smile, even when it's hiding a wound. And the question now isn't whether she was wronged. It's whether we've learned, or we're still repeating the same old pattern. So if these stories matter to you, if you want the truth behind the headlines, behind the fame, behind the silence, subscribe for more cinematic deep dives into the lives the world forgot. And now we ask you, do you think fashion has really changed since Beverly's time? Or are today's young models walking into the same trap? Drop your thoughts below. Let's talk.